Do you hear those jing jing jingle bells? Merry Christmas Eve, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Mr. Eric Reads. And what better way to bring in Christmas Day than by reading a story about somebody who didn't really like Christmas all that much. Tonight's book by Dr. Seuss is the absolute classic, How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Have a wonderful evening. Get to bed early. Otherwise, the Grinch might come visit your house. Of course, I'm just kidding. But let's find out what happens in How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. Every who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be that his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think the most likely reason of them all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve just hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was now busy hanging a mistletoe wreath. "They're hanging their stockings," he snarled with a sneer. "Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here." Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming, "I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming." For tomorrow, he knew, all the Who girls and boys would wake up bright and early, and they'd rush for their toys. And then, oh, the noise. Oh, the noise, 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 noise. That's the one thing he hated. The noise, noise, noise. Then the Who's young and old would sit down to a feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, 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 feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Whos would start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more the Grinch thought of the Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I put up with it. Now, I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? Then he got an idea. An awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do. The Grinch laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat. And he chuckled and he clucked, "Why, what a great Grinchy trick. With his coat and his hat, I'll look just like St. Nick. All I need is a reindeer." The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there were none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No. The Grinch simply said, "Well, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead." So he called his dog Max, and he tied some red thread, and he tied a big old horn on the top of Max's head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and they hitched up old Max. The Grinch said, "Giddy up!" And the sleigh started down towards the homes where the Whovilles lay a snooze in their town. All of their windows were dark. Quiet snow filled the air. All the Whos were dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, "This is stop number 1. The old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed on the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where all the little Who stockings all hung in a row. "These stockings," he grinned, "are the first things to go." Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room, and he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorns, and plums. And he stuffed them in bags, and the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags up one by one through the chimney. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out that icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took the last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. "And now," grinned the Grinch, "I will stuff up the tree." And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast and he saw a small Who, Cindy Lou who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter who'd gotten out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" But you know that old Grinch was so smart and so slick, he thought up a lie, and he thought of it quick. "Why, my little sweet tot," the fake Santa Claus lied, "there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, and then I'll bring it right back here." And his fib fooled the child. He patted her on the head. He had gotten her a drink, and he sent her to bed. And then Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, and he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. Then the last thing he took was a log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, that old liar. And on the walls he left nothing but some hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. Mouses? It was dawn, all the Who's still in bed, all the Who's still a snooze, when he packed up his sled. He packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags and the tinsels, the trimmings and the trappings. "3,000 feet up on the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Purr, to the Who's. He was Grinchishly humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open for a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will cry, oh, boo-hoo-hoo. Delightful. That noise, grinned the Grinch. That I simply must hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started it started out low, but then started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, the sound sounded merry. It couldn't be, but it was so very merry, very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. When he saw was a shocking surprise. For every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or another, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How can this be so? It came without ribbons, it came without tags, it came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't thought before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then, well, in Whoville they say, that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast. And he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. The end. Do you see, kids? Sometimes Christmas is more important. But it's not about presents sometimes. Huh. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the classic Dr. Seuss tale, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, here on Mr. Eric Reads. Have a wonderful evening tonight. Have a wonderful Merry Christmas tomorrow. I will be here again tomorrow, obviously. But guys, spend some time with family and friends. Take care of each other. Be kind. And like I said, I hope you enjoyed the story about the Grinch. Bye-bye now.